G'day folks, thanks for watching. The doctrine of imminence is a widely held belief by most Christians today. It is held by those who favour the pre-tribulational doctrine of the rapture of the church. According to raptureready.com, pre-tribulationists define imminence as the following, quote, imminency, as it relates to Bible prophecy, simply means that the return of Jesus Christ for the church can happen at any moment. No warning signs will indicate a short-term countdown. We as Christians remain on alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only way for the rapture to be truly imminent is to have it transpire before the tribulation. If the church were required to wait until after the manifestation of certain events, then there would be no doctrine of imminency, unquote. Well, with that we can certainly say there is no doctrine of imminency then, as there most certainly is many quite major signs that indeed do need to occur before the rapture, and we will look at some of those. Pre-tribulationists get their imminency belief by taking many verses out of biblical context. Here are some of those verses. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. 1 Thessalonians 5:2. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels in heaven, but my Father only. Matthew 24:36. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in an hour, as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom the Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Matthew 24:42-46. Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Matthew 25:13. Let's take a quick look at the first example, the thief in the night, and the others we will look at later. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-7 says, But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction come upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. Ye are all the children of light, and the children of the day. We are not of the night, nor of darkness. Therefore let us not sleep, as do others, but let us watch, and be sober. For they that sleep in the night, and they that be drunken, are drunken in the night. Please take careful note of verse 4. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief. It clearly says that that day should not overtake us as a thief. This is because we are not drunken in the night, nor sleeping, or not watching. We are watching. But for what? We are watching for the signs given. So we see by proper reading of Scripture that the day of the Lord and the rapture just spoken of in the previous chapter will not come upon those watching as a thief. However, it does come as a thief to those not watching, and those not watching can be the unsaved and those saints who have fallen asleep. So let's now take a look at some of the signs given that must occur before the rapture. These signs mean that Jesus cannot come back at any time as claimed, unless these signs come to pass first. In no particular order, here are some of the signs. Sign 1. The Jews must be in the land of Israel as a nation before Christ can come. The Jews only returned and became a nation in 1948. Before that, the place was desolate for almost 2,000 years. In the book of Revelation, the Jews are a nation again. They are sacrificing in the temple. They are persecuted by the Antichrist. 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe, are sealed with the seal of God. There are many passages in the scripture speaking about this. Let's look at just one verse prophesying this event. In Ezekiel 37, the entire chapter gives a detailed account of the Jews returning to Israel as a nation. In verse 14 it says, And I shall put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I shall place you in your own land. Then shall ye know that I the Lord have spoken it, and performed it, saith the Lord. This must happen before the rapture, as it happens before the 70th week starts. A time period within the 70th week is known as Jacob's trouble, and it speaks about Israel suffering greatly during this time. Jeremiah 30 verse 7 says, "Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." Clearly Israel is a nation in the land at this time, and in case you still doubt that, let's look at Revelation 12, 1-6, which says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered." Skipping to verse 6, "And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that she should feed her there 1,260 days." The woman with the 12 stars is Israel, with her 12 tribes. When most of the New Testament was written, Israel was still in the land. So for Jesus to come back, Israel had to be first removed from the land and then returned again. As we know from history, the Jews were thrown out of Israel by the Romans in 70 AD. And this brings me to sign 2. Sign 2 is a prophecy Jesus spoke of, where he prophesied about the Jewish diaspora, that the Jews would be desolated as a nation. Because Jesus spoke this prophecy, Israel must be desolated before Jesus could return. In Matthew 23, 38-39 it says, "Behold, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say unto you, ye shall not see me henceforth, till ye say, Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord." However, he did not leave the house of Israel desolate at that time. He said it would happen to the generation standing in front of him. Back a few verses, in Matthew 23:36, Jesus said, "Verily I say unto you, all these things shall come upon this generation." And indeed the house was desolated and completely and utterly destroyed about 40 years after Jesus said this will happen, and indeed it occurred during that generation. The problem for pre-tribbers is that if Jesus' return was imminent to Christians when the New Testament gave them those supposed imminency verses I spoke of, then how could it really have been imminent if they had to wait out the generational prophecy of the diaspora first? Then, with no Israel in the land, they then had to wait almost 2,000 years for them to return again, before his return could become imminent. Clearly the doctrine of imminence is not a biblical doctrine, but it is a doctrine of that old serpent called the devil. Sign 3. Peter must live to be an old man, and then be killed before Christ could return. Jesus said to Peter in John 21:18-19, "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkedst whither thou wouldest. But when thou shalt be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not." This he spake, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he saith unto him, Follow me. So clearly Jesus could not return, nor was his return imminent while Peter was alive. And he would be alive for quite some time. In fact, he died about 34 years after Christ was crucified, and after most of the New Testament was written. He was certainly alive when those supposed imminence verses were written. Sign 4. John would outlive Peter, and John denied he would be alive when Christ returned. John 21:21. Peter seeing him saith to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? Speaking about John. Jesus saith unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow thou me. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, that disciple should not die. Yet Jesus saith not unto him that he shall not die, but, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? We see back even in those days, the brethren falsely believed Jesus could return soon, even in John's day, before he died. But John put that thinking to bed, saying in verse 23, Yet Jesus said not unto him, He shall not die. So John will die before Christ's return, and he will outlive Peter, who lived to be an old man. Since John wrote Revelation in 90 AD, some 60 years after Christ's crucifixion, and after all of the New Testament was written, How can the doctrine of imminence have been a doctrine that the disciples believed in? They clearly believed no such thing. Sign 5. The gospel must be preached to the uttermost parts of the earth first. Acts 1:8. And ye shall be witnesses unto me in both Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost parts of the earth. The gospel has really only reached the uttermost parts in the last few hundred years, and only in the 1900s were missions sent large scale into lost tribes to learn their language and preach the gospel of Jesus. This had to happen first before Christ could return, because it was prophesied to happen. How could Christ return if the gospel had not been preached into the uttermost parts? That would make the Bible a liar. So that's enough of those signs for now. All of those signs have now been fulfilled. Israel is back in the land. Peter and John are both with the Lord. The diaspora has taken place, and the gospel has been preached into the uttermost parts of the earth. So, does that mean that the return of Christ is now imminent? Unfortunately not. There is a time when it will be imminent, and I'll show that in a minute. But first we must learn of some other signs which have not yet occurred, which must occur before Christ comes. Sign 6. Antichrist must first be revealed. In 2 Thessalonians 2:1-5 it says, Now we beseech you, brethren, by the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, or be troubled, neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter as from us, as that the day of Christ is at hand. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, all that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was with you I told you these things? Here Paul is rebuking the Thessalonians for not remembering what he had told them. He repeats to them what he had already told them, and what he had told them was that the day of the Lord was not about to happen, nor was the rapture. Paul said concerning our gathering together to him, in verse 1, that will not happen, he says in verse 3, unless first two events happen. Those two events Paul mentions in verse 4 are 1. A falling away, which is apostasy, and 2. The Antichrist is revealed. So even Paul rebuked the early church for holding a doctrine of imminence. Sign 7. Cosmic signs. There are a number of cosmic signs and disturbances that must occur before the rapture. Let's look at Matt 24:29-31. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Well, this passage has not occurred yet, and it is indeed the sixth seal of Revelation 6:12-17. But take careful note. It says, after the sun is darkened, the moon stops giving light, and the stars fall, and the heavens shake, then shall the Lord gather his elect from the four corners of the earth. You see that? After those events, the rapture will happen, not before. This is seal 6, so let's take a quick peek at seal 6. Revelation 6:12-17 says, And I beheld, and when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places, And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So there we have it, a perfect match, and indeed the rapture is mentioned in the following chapter before the seventh seal is opened. So how can the rapture be imminent if we must see these cosmic signs first? It can't be imminent, can it? But after those signs do happen, it does become imminent. Very, very imminent. So much so that in Luke's account of the same passage, he adds, And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up, and lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. Luke 21:28. So before we wrap up, let's quickly look at some of those supposed imminency verses pre-tribulationists often quote. These verses, if you take note, are spoken of after the cosmic signs and rapture verses that I had just quoted in Matt 24:29-31. In other words, they are still speaking of a post-tribulation rapture. However, the verses also warn of the day of the Lord, which starts immediately after the rapture. One of the contradictions they have is they try to claim Matt 24:29-31 is not speaking of a rapture, but they then take an about face and claim that only 5 verses later that when they say no man knows the day nor the hour in Matt 24:36, it is now suddenly a reference to the rapture. The contradiction is breathtaking. I'm sorry, but they cannot have it both ways. Imminence is clearly unbiblical. However, we are to watch. That is very biblical indeed, so don't go falling asleep. Watching means to watch for the signs of his return. Watching does not mean expectant or that his return is imminent. We cannot know the day nor the hour, but we can know the season, and we know the season by the cosmic signs given that precede the rapture. It says in Matthew 24:34-36 and 42-44, Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Note that if the good man had been watching, he would have been ready. It clearly states the watchman knows when the thief is coming, not the day or the hour, but he knows the season. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe, comment, like and share on Facebook. Subscribing will help you get all the newly released videos I will produce on this subject and others. Thanks very much.